back, everyone, to our next panel in SAG-AFTRA Stop the Hate Week. We are in for a really inspirational keynote talk. I want to, again, recognize my friend and colleague, SAG-AFTRA Executive Vice President Rebecca Damon. Hello, Rebecca.
Hey, Gabrielle.
As I said in the opening today, we have to begin turning our passion for diversity, equity, and inclusion from strong words and beliefs into real actions. So that is our theme in this moment as we contemplate moving from conversation to action. I'm honored to introduce our keynote speaker today, very good friend, fabulous leader, L. Scott Caldwell. She's the national co-chair of the SAG-AFTRA Women's Committee. Scotty has a long, deep career in film, television, and theater, winning a Tony Award for her role in Joe Turner's Come and Gone, and appearing in a plethora of series, including Judging Amy, Chicago Hope, so much more. I can't even list them all, but welcome, Scotty. So happy you're here.
Okay, thank you, Gabrielle. I wish I were the keynote speaker, but I'm not.
Nice.
I'm going to be introducing the keynote speaker in just a moment, but first I want to thank you, Gabrielle, for inviting me to this event today. It's obviously very exciting, and I'm happy to be a part of it. My co-chairs, Leslie Shreve, Nancy Flanagan, and I want to thank you for your unwavering support of the SAG-AFTRA National Women's Committee, and also for your work on the AFL-CIO's Women's Committee. I don't know where you find the time, but it's very important because, as we both know, the landscape of issues that we confront as performers mirror the issues facing all our sisters in the workplace. Now, the SAG-AFTRA National Women's Committee works to influence and improve the quality and the quantity of employment opportunities for female members across all media platforms. And while our committee has been focused on responding to the inequities in the workplace for our women members that include fighting against sex and age discrimination, in the past few years, we, like everybody else in the world, has been laser focused on safety. Safe working conditions free from discrimination and sexual harassment. To that end, I am very proud that our Women's Committee has played a role in some of our union's groundbreaking initiatives, which include developing and releasing the definitive code of conduct to prevent harassment and assault in the industry. We've also built internal and external programs and retrained our staff to provide support to survivors who wish to report an incident or who need therapeutic resources or other assistance. We've also negotiated stronger provisions into our major contracts with studio and network producers that guarantee our members significant rights in intimate and highly exposed production scenes, a process that has built a whole new role for intimacy coordinators to be advocates for our performers. And lastly, and this is very exciting, we are rolling out a cutting-edge app that makes it easy for members to report sexual harassment. Real action leading to tangible change. To explore more on that topic, it's a great pleasure for me to introduce Shelley Zallis, the CEO of the Female Quotient. Now, you can read her full, very extensive, very long, very impressive bio on our website, but I will just say this. Shelley is a true leader. She's a mentor. She's a movement maker. She's a powerhouse. I heard her say in an interview that she created the Female Quotient out of a heartbeat moment. That's passion. And she has been using her passion and her platform to remind us of three things. One, gender inequalities, still exist. And in many cases, they're getting worse. Two, For all the efforts made to date, organizations still lack effective ways to close their equality gap. And there is a lack of community and a platform for women to raise their visibility in the workplace. Wow, that's scary. Let's get into it. Welcome, Shelley.
Wow, first of all, what an honor to be with you, El Scott. I had shivers as you were speaking. I always say that equality is a choice, unconscious bias is an excuse. When you use the word unconscious, you're conscious. And then you have a choice, do something or not. So I think this is really what it's all about. You know, we also say a woman alone is power, collectively we have impact, and we are truly impacting change together, making progress together, and not just following the legacy rules, but as I'm well known as the chief troublemaker, breaking all the rules that make no sense, creating the new ones. We have this opportunity to create an equitable future with choice and intentionality. So thrilled to be here together with you and everyone else joining.
Great, thank you.
All right, so let me just go through a little bit of perception reality, or how do we take equality from an ideal to a reality? And how do we move from conversation to action? We have been admiring the problems, we've been talking about the problems, but it's time to create solutions for change, measurement for accountability, and most importantly, hold ourselves responsible for the choices that we make, because we do have the choice. We know the business case for gender equality. We talk about it all the time. We know that gender diverse teams are more profitable. We know that gender diverse teams are more innovative. We know that organizations that embrace female specific issues, we have higher employee satisfaction. Higher employee satisfaction leads to higher passion and purpose-driven goodness. And we know there's less turnover. And we also know that companies, when we elevate women, we're more effective across all dimensions. We also know when we have more women at the top, we move beyond just financial success, ROI, return on investment, to ROI, return on impact. And we put a greater emphasis on the ESGs in the business. But here is the reality. What percent of the C-suite in top 1,000 US companies is represented by women? I'll give you a second to think that through. Pick one of these answers. If you said 25%, you'd be right. But the unfortunate reality of the 25%, less than 6% of CEOs are positions held by women. And here is a reality. With every 100 men promoted to manager, only 85 women are promoted and hired. So we're already starting at a disparity, at a disproportionate place. So we always say the time is now. We can't rewrite the past. We can't keep apologizing for what was, but we certainly can create a new script for today moving forward. We can shut the door of inequity, open a new door of opportunity. But if we keep continuing to hire and promote women at the pace that we are today, in 10 years from now, we will see a 1% improvement. But opportunity, if we start hiring and promoting women and men at equal rates, we can actually close the gap in 10 years and see a 10% improvement, and seeing women holding 48% of positions. And as the co-founder of See Her, if you can see her, you can be her, that will be a game changer for all of us. We will start seeing and imagining the possibilities as actually a reality that we can all achieve. But here's another reality. 61% of women want to reveal their salaries compared to just 38% of men. I wonder why. And then when you look at the representation representation matters. Representation equals reflection. But the unfortunate thing is in corporations, Fortune 500, we start at less than 50% at entry level and end at less than 18% in the C-suite, with women of color at 4%. So I just want to keep pointing out that we have a big problem overall with gender, but women of color, and even bigger disproportionate impact on women of color. And then we look at the pay gap. For every dollar earned by white non-Hispanic men, Asian women, 85 cents on the dollar, white non-Hispanic women, 82 cents on the dollar, Black women, 63 cents on the dollar, Native American women, 60 cents on the dollar, Latina women, 55 cents on the dollar. Is that fair? And if we are aware of the pay gap, how can we close our eyes to the inequity? It's time to open our eyes. It's time to be conscious of the disparity and make a conscious decision to close it. Equal pay for equal work. But here's the good news, opportunity. When we do close the pay gap, we have an opportunity to add over $4.3 trillion to the US GDP by 2025. And when we do close the pay gap, the average working woman could afford so much more, contributing to the economy, contributing to her health and welfare, and additional years of tuition, education, more groceries, shopping, more mortgage payments, utility payments. We are seeing such a crisis now, especially with COVID, the disproportionate impact of women and women in the workplace, not only from unemployment, but for housing and for food. And of course, 14 more months of childcare, which is one of the greatest barriers today of women in the workplace. We are losing so many incredible women to caregiving. And caregiving is still predominantly a female issue. But we are seeing a lot of progress through a lot of policies. We are starting to see some new rules of the road that will go a long way to ensuring equity moving forward. Salary history ban. You will not be allowed to ask someone, how much have you made? And imagine, man and woman equally qualified, two actors coming in. Well, how much did you make on the last show? A man says, I made X. They're going to say, great, today's your lucky day. You're going to get a 20% increase. A woman comes in, what did you make on your last show? I made Y, which by the way is already 20% less than the man is making. Oh, today's your lucky day. You're going to get a 20% increase. Well, we're still not equal. And that's where equality and equity comes in. Equality, equal opportunity, equity, making sure we're all starting at the same place. Subsidized schooling, we can see with COVID, the impact of homeschooling and the, as my girlfriend Eve Rotsky says, invisible work, the work of caregiving that is not recognized, but is actually forcing so many women, forget about the furloughs, the reducing salaries, the job losses, but women opting out because they can't just do it all. Paid parental leave, starting to play with the concept, is it parental leave or parental in? When you have a baby, you don't have a child for just 3 months. This becomes a new life stage that we need to be able to work around and allow everyone to bring their best self, their true self, their whole self to the workplace and be able to have a family with no apology and no permission needed. And then the equal pay law, equal pay for equal work. The problem exists that stereotypes still exist. And this is where implicit bias, unconscious bias comes in. Let's get conscious of our unconscious. 60% of women agree stereotypes impact their careers and their lives. 49% of men agree. The glass ceiling. Women often hired on their past performance, men on potential. And when we look at the pink versus blue stereotypes, which still exist, if you think about who's best suited to launch a high-stake project, men. Who's best suited to lead a massive organizational change? Men. And by the way, when women are brought on, if they fail, It's because they weren't good enough, not because the job was impossible and they inherited a mess. And who's best to plan events for fellow coworkers? Women. Who raises their hand to run the diversity and inclusion committees? Women. And what's interesting, just a little tidbit, blue originally was the color for women and pink for men. It was only in the 1940s that we changed the color scheme, maybe because pink looked better on women. And we still have a pervasive boys club. Men and women both agree. And just to show a few statistics to set the tone here, and this is according to Harvard, their implicit bias association test, question: what percent of people do you think are more readily associate men with career and women with family? Think in your head. 76% of people will associate men with career, women with family. And by the way, if caregivers are men, if they have that primary responsibility, they will find some of the same challenges as women in those roles. When hiring managers believe that a woman has children because they put PTA on their resume, how much less likely is she to be hired? 79% less likely to be hired. And I just want to say for the record, skills, caregiving skills, empathy, compassion, vulnerability, resilience, passion, all of these qualities are actually the greatest qualities of leaders today, but they've either been the invisible qualities, the unspoken qualities, the unrecognized qualities. And yet in COVID, when we look at the countries that have done the best in protecting their people, their communities, responded the fastest, took care of the problem, protecting everyone, their countries run by women. So these are qualities that we need to start screaming from the treetops and swinging from the chandeliers and celebrating these qualities. And they're not female, they're feminine. They're the soft powers of leadership. And when you Google the best qualities of leaders today, you will see that compassion and empathy are among the top 10 qualities of the best leaders today. When a woman's name is replaced with a man's name on a resume, how much more likely is that applicant to be hired? 60% more likely. So here's what everyone wants us to do. I'm supposed to turn my name from Shelley to Sheldon, pretend I'm a man so I get hired, show up at the job and like, surprise, guess what you got? I don't think so. Own our strength. Our differences are truly our greatest strengths. That's the power of team. How many more times do men interrupt women than other men? Almost 3 times more often. These are real facts. When we look at representation in media and entertainment, 3% of ads show women in leadership positions, 2% show women as intelligent, 1% show women with a sense of humor. The crazy part is that media defines culture. Culture creates change, and change creates the impact in the world that we all have the power, the responsibility, and the accountability to lead with. Why should anyone care? Well, 85% of purchase decisions are made by women, and yet 40% of women do not identify at all with the women they see in advertising. 55% of adults believe women are portrayed negatively in media, and 90% of parents say their number one concern is there's no role models for our girls, and I am going to add, for our boys. What you see is what you believe. It's what you imagine. You imagine the possibilities. So it's time to rewrite the rules. Why? Because the rules of the workplace were written over 100 years ago for men and by men. Women are now coming into the workplace. We need to rethink our policies, our benefits, close the pay gap, and also really not only fill the pipeline with more diversity, but create the pathway to leadership and help our women get past the messy middle management to rise to leadership. And so at the end of the day, I just want to reinforce where I started. Equality is a choice. Unconscious bias is an excuse. Time to get conscious, do not only the right thing, but a good thing for business, for media, for entertainment. So thank you for listening.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much. That was just fantastic. Shelley, you are such a leader in this space, and it's really an honor for all of our SAG-AFTRA members to get to hear you today. So on behalf of all of them, I just want to really thank you very much. Really fantastic and so much good information.
Well, thank you for all the
okay.
great work you're doing too.
Oh, it really is a pleasure to be able to see these things laid out in such a big way, a big picture, thoughtful discussion. I also should give a shout out to our friend Scotty Caldwell for her insights about the work of the SAG-AFTRA's Women's Committee. We are so proud of them. I want to ask everybody to make sure that they stay in touch with us for the rest of the day. We still have more after that fantastic keynote. Our week's events, you go to sagaftra.org/stopthehate. And I want to make sure that you are following that conversation on social media with the hashtag Stop the Hate and always the hashtag SAG-AFTRA. I'm going to see everybody back here at 2:15 Pacific and 5:15 Eastern for our panel discussing the Middle Eastern and North African community of performers. It's going to be great. So thank you all. And boy, hasn't it been a very good afternoon. See you guys soon.